What is up, ladies and gentlemen, Citizen JV, and today we're going to be talking about Borderlands 1, or known as Borderlands Game of the Year Edition. This is by far one of my great games of the Borderlands series. Now, granted, I did love Borderlands 2, and I really enjoyed Borderlands 3. But however, what I love about Borderlands 1, so to say, is the gunplay. I think the gunplay in all three Borderlands games have always been the main staple of all three games, much that other than the sense of humor or the personality that these games have. But however, it's the gameplay that really takes the bread and butter for this series, specifically or particularly, and that's why I love these games so much. Now, what I really want to talk about here, though, too, is I love playing as Mordecai. You know, he's definitely one of the 3 out of the 4 characters, or the 4 characters in Borderlands 1. And so I tried playing as Roland, and for some reason I just couldn't get into it because I'm so used to like playing, you know, any kind of games that have a really huge necessity of stealth mechanics. You know, that's one of the main things that I really like to really touch base on when it comes to any kind of games in general. But Borderlands doesn't really have stealth, really. It does, but it doesn't. And I kind of feel that it's actually a good thing, because Borderlands has always been one of those games to where it always knows what it's doing. You know, as I recently made a Borderlands 2 video not too long ago, I was talking about the gunplay aesthetic or the mechanics in Borderlands 2. And Borderlands Game of the Year Edition, or Borderlands 1, is no exception. You know, that's where the Borderlands games have always been faithful to. Not like I previously mentioned about, you know, like the personality of these games, the sense of humor of these games. It's the dark humor and the light humor, or whatever kind of humor you might get out of these games. But however, it is always about the gunplay. I think the gunplay in these games are very interesting and very unique in their own way. And that's why I like about these games specifically. I think it's very intricate and masterfully designed. I think when it comes to Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, or Borderlands 3, or Borderlands the pre-sequel, these games are just absolutely stunning. And I think that's one of the main things I'm going to be probably doing on my channel for the most part, is that I'm doing something far more different than anybody else when it comes to like reviewers, professional reviewers, or, you know, like or anything that might be far more interesting of what people really want to see in terms of video content coming from those professional reviewers, whether if it's Polygon, Kotaku, IGN, Game Informer. I mean, all these professional reviewers out there, they know what they're talking about. Or Jake Baldino from Game Ranks. You know, I really love Game Ranks. I think they really do some really good job. You know, I do follow Gaming Bolt as well. And so, you know, there's just all these really cool video game media outlets out there on the YouTube medium or media. And I think that's the most important thing, though, too. It's like, don't always take their reviews into heart or into a particular kind of grain of salt. But I'm just putting that out there, so I thought I'd put that a little snippet of information in there is what I'm going to be doing. But however, I want to talk about more about this game. I think when it comes to Borderlands 1, it's you can definitely tell obviously it's a much older game. It is a very much older game from Borderlands 2 or Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 and Borderlands 2 had some better intricacies in terms of its visual detail. And I think, as far as Borderlands 1 or Game of the Year Edition is concerned, this game definitely it definitely ensures itself. What I mean by that, you know, what I really meant to say about that is the fact that this game does a really good job of showing what the amount of detail that this game does. And I think that's why I like the Borderlands game, as I previously mentioned before. And that's where as I previously mentioned in my Borderlands 2 or my BioShock 2 video that I made not too long ago as well, is that I am a huge visual person. other than, you know, like talking about specific types of audio, either if it's like the sound or the soundtrack or like the audio environments along with the visual environments within it when it comes to the confines of these structures of these types of games. And I think that's what's really important to me anyway, because like I said, I'm more of a visual, excuse me. But I do like audio. I think audio, I wouldn't say I'm an audiophile or a visual file really, but I am a visual person. I'm a very visual person, and that's the most important thing to me, like I said, and that's why I love these games. Now, one thing I really would like to talk about this game though too is I feel like when it comes to Borderlands 1, it's still, like I said, it still retains its art direction or its cell shading style. And, you know, that's where Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3 or the pre-sequel is concerned, because, you know, these games have a very unique artistic type of structure. And I think that's why these games are so heavily influenced. And it's not just because of the visual art style. It has to do with the gameplay, as I previously mentioned as well. You know, that's where usually, when it comes to the Borderlands games, it's the visual art style, it's the gameplay structure and the mechanics of it, and it has to do with what you can do with any kind of build that you want to use, or per se. You know, it's a very interesting fine line of what you want to do. And what I'm trying to get to is that Borderlands, either which one that you play, they're pretty easy to get into. They're really not that hard to get into at all. And I think that's where, as far as first-person shooters are coming from, or from my own personal opinion or preference, I've always been a first-person shooter fan. Other than, you know, like the third-person action-adventure stuff, like Uncharted or Assassin's Creed or Gears of War or blah, 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 blah. But however, I think when it comes to first-person shooters, Borderlands has always been one of my favorites amongst other first-person shooter games as well. You know, much like Quake, much like Doom, much more like Unreal back on PC in 1998 or 1999. I don't know which year it was, but point being. So, now what I really want to talk about here though too is I would really like to know what Borderlands 4 is going to be when that eventually comes out. I mean, God heaven forbid, I'm sure that they'll probably do some different gameplay mechanics and its structure and how it's going to work in terms of Borderlands 4. But as far as I know, I think that it's going to be it's going to definitely be a while for that. There's no question about that. But however, I think when it came, for me, you know, I played Borderlands 1 for the very first time ever when the Game of the Year edition came out. Yeah, you heard me correctly. You heard me correctly, because I did, however, play I believe there was a demo back in the PS3 days, and I played the demo, and I wasn't really quietly impressed at first, which was saying something, because, like I said, I love first-person shooters. But then I started playing the demo again, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I know exactly what I want to do, because, you know, like I said, it's the first-person shooter genre, along with some role-playing mechanics, and I'm not always deep into role-playing games per se, but as I'm now older, and maybe a little bit wiser, I would say, I really do think that role-playing games, much like Borderlands, or much other, like, you know, action-adventure games like Assassin's Creed Origins, implemented some role-playing mechanics in there as well. You know, Odyssey did that too. But I'm talking about as in, like, more of a deeper role-playing mechanic. You know, like Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, all those RPG games, you know. And I have played a little bit of Elden Ring, but however, I still haven't finished it. But I just want to put a little excerpt in there, so my apologies on that. But I want to go back to Borderlands, because I think when it comes to Borderlands, I finished this game for the very first time. I would say it was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago when this game initially came out as a remastered version for the current, before the new generation of consoles came to be, which were the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and on PC, obviously. But I was just like, oh my god, this game's absolutely amazing. And it was that nostalgia. That nostalgia definitely set in pretty quickly, because I remember playing the demo back in the day, and then like I said before, you know, played it for the very first time of the Game of the Year edition, and that, like I said, that's where the nostalgia factor comes in, and I love that. I love it when it comes to a game series like this, or any other games that of, you know, like the Legacy of Kain series or Mass Effect. You know, there's always some nostalgia factor in there, and I think that's the most important thing to most gamers out there. Other than, you know, being on the visual side of things, like I said before, for me, I'm a very visual person, so I know I keep on saying that, but it's true. But overall, all I can say is that I do highly recommend playing this game. If there are some gamers out there that haven't played this series before, and what I will say is that if you want to get into the series, by all means, get the Game of the Year edition. It's definitely going to provide you some really good context of, you know, not just with the gameplay mechanics and its art visual style or its cell 3D shading, it's the story. And I do believe that you have to play Borderlands Game of the Year edition or Borderlands 1 maybe more than once to get to the story, you know, to understand the story and everything, but that's the whole entire purpose to me, in my own personal opinion. But however, that's the way how I feel about that. So, and then you can venture off to Borderlands 2, or you can play Borderlands the pre-sequel first and then play Borderlands 2 and then Borderlands 3. But all I can say is this, like I said, you know, this series is so much fun. I think that's where the fun factor comes in with these games, though, too, is that the fun factor with these games, it's so much fun, and as long as you know what you're doing in terms of what kind of build that you want to do, in terms of that build and its gameplay style, and how you want to do certain things to be more efficient, it's very cool. And one thing I do want to mention here, though, too, I'm playing as Mordecai right now, which is the hunter in the first one. And what I love about Mordecai really is the fact that, you know, he is a hunter. You know, he is like that of a stealth type of character. But like I said, you know, with stealth in this game, it is existent, but it's somewhat non-existent as well. But I just want to put this out there real quick. Now, what I will say is that, like I said, if you want to play a game, play this game. I think that this is, like I said, it's definitely one of my favorites. I do highly recommend it. And if you want to be able to know what the series is like, even if a lot of people already know what this game series is like because they've played it, and because of the story or because of the gameplay, that's usually where these games come from. That's where these games lie in terms of, you know, like the gameplay, the visual art style, the way how the whole entire structure of this game as itself and as it were. And I think that's what makes these game series so well loved and beloved by all fans, including myself, obviously. So, but anyways, if anybody has any types of questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. You guys have a good rest of your night and day or evening, and I will chat at you guys later. And one more thing I will add here too is, I think, in my own personal opinion, I think Mordecai is definitely one of my favorite hunters or treasure vault hunters in this game, especially in the first one. But like I said, any comments or questions, please feel free. Chat with you guys later. Peace.